Okay, let's call the Monday, December 11th meeting of the Beaumont Finance and Audit Committee meeting at 6 o'clock. If I could have roll call, please.
Okay. Member Joanne Roberts.
Here.
Member Stephen Martino.
Here.
Member John Chamberlain.
Mr. Chamberlain and Mr. Benecki are out this
Okay.
evening.
Vice Chair Steve Cooley.
Here.
Chair Elaine Morgan.
Here.
Treasurer Sharon Geiser.
Here.
Councilmember Santos.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll.
Here. Thank you. And if we could stand for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, does anybody have any adjustments to the agenda? And any conflict of interest disclosure? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to item number 1, which is the adoption of the minutes. I did have one question on the minutes, and that was, I think, Stephen Martino arrived late.
No, I was not here.
Oh, you were not here at all?
Not here at all.
Was that the meeting before? I was like, well, I thought he was here. Okay, so he was not here.
I think I notified staff by email I was going to be out of
Okay.
town that week. I couldn't attend the special meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. And other than that, I saw no other changes. Anybody else? Okay, if there's no other items on the adoption of minutes, if I could have a, what do we call it? A motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And Milana, you're on.
Well, hi.
Hi.
Happy December. Merry Christmas.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, all that fun stuff. Okay, well, we have what I am representing is the final draft of the fiscal 16 audit. The things that are different are the things that were handwritten into the draft at the special meeting. Those have all been corrected in this draft. We've added the MD&A to this document as well, and I believe that we've got all the numbers cleaned up and good to go. So
Okay.
I thought I would just leave it up to this committee. If there were any questions, follow-up questions from the special meeting, or questions on the changes that we made, or the addition of the MD&A.
Okay, great. And does anybody have any questions for Milana on the updated draft? Nope. We're good?
Can I say something? Okay. It's a positive thing. I mean, I'd like to, really, appreciate all the work you've done. And, when we started here, me on the council, on the committee, I would say on the committee, 2016, we don't have nothing. I mean, from January till I recall till July, we don't have nothing. I mean, we insist that to give us some report, still nothing in there. Now we have a complete report in here, and being on the finance and accounting on myself, and I impressed on this, and we discussed this. We have the fund. You segregated the fund on not only CFD, is doing a balance sheet on the 3 funds. I reviewed it this afternoon. I'm impressed on that. I mean, now I could talk and make sense with the city, and I could recommend on the city that really it's a good report. And of course, we have some questions on our side, especially on certain level of our finance, and probably more on the revenue side. And I look on the revenue side on here is really good in 2016, and hopefully we will have the interim, balance sheet. I'm more on balance sheet on the management side, and on 2017 and 18. Oh, especially in 16 and 17. I know you mentioned that probably we will have it this coming January or February, and I know it's too soon, but if you have that unaudited, that would be great. I mean, on my side, as I said, I mean, the only thing that I see here, looking on the graph that you made in here, very impressive on that. I mean, on the revenue, now I could understand where the city getting all the revenues. Before, we put it down on the board and everything, and then we put it on paper still, you know?
Right, it's hard to see it. It's
That's
hard to
correct.
understand it.
That's correct. Now I could tell the community in here, this is well done, financial. And if we go up on the certain level or something, so the public will not be criticizing us, probably we will have a, on time, probably starting next year or 2 years from now, and a high level of also of, auditors and all the services that we could acquire from outside, the consultant and everything, so we could answer all of this, the public
Right.
on that. And then, that's the thing that I really impressed on this side.
Great,
Okay? Thank you so much.
thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
have a couple
Great job.
questions, Elaine. I have a couple questions.
Okay. Can you move the mic
Is it
really
on?
close to
Can
you?
you hear me?
A little bit. You're so soft
Is
spoken.
this on? It is? Okay.
Okay.
I'm
there
sorry.
we go.
I feel like I'm talking loud and
I know.
nobody can ever hear me. Okay, Milana, just for because I can't understand some of these things.
Sure.
On page 22, I think it's page 22 because I have the old one that I scribbled all over. It's the statement of revenues and expenditures for the government funds
Yes,
and changes in fund balance.
yes,
Under the community facilities fund,
yes.
the community development, community services expenditure of $2,007,000. What is that? Do you know? I mean,
Yes.
is that all the infrastructure that?
No,
in
this
that-
is the cost to the city for doing the various maintenance throughout the city. So it's maintaining medians and landscaping, the parks, all of those things that fall within the guidelines of the CFD program. So those costs of the city are covered by the service component of the assessment money. And that's what this particular one is. It's the service assessment and the future capital facilities assessments is what's in that column. So the
Okay.
costs for both of those then come out of it.
Okay. Now, I thought, I understood before, and I don't know if this is correct. For example, we live in Four Seasons. And I thought all the streets, the street lights, the pipes for the sewers and the water, all the infrastructure. Is that paid out of the CFDs also?
That was already paid. That's why we have a CFD debt. The proceeds of those bonds are what were used to construct the streets and the storm drains, the sewer, all
Okay,
this
so in all they do-
infrastructure to pull it together. This is now, when you get your property tax bill, there's the assessment for the CFD and there's a service assessment. The service assessment is the one that helps to cover the cost of the maintenance of
okay.
citywide facilities that then
Okay.
apply to the CFD areas.
Okay, so that's
Right.
all right. And on page 73,
Okay.
required supplementary information on the city's proportionate share of the net pension liability for the last 10 years.
Oh,
Can you
right.
explain that?
Well, that's a new standard from GASB, and that was one that specifically Brett talked about at the special meeting, is that it started to,
Could you
What
clarify
page?
where you are?
oh, page 73 of the new document.
Okay.
Looks like this?
Okay, that's what I have.
Yep.
Okay. But I don't think, is that what you're looking at? Is the?
Right.
Maybe the old one.
Okay.
Okay.
It's, yeah, they're,
It's the required
The net
supplementary
pension.
information, schedule of plan contributions, last 10 years? That's the same one, right?
right,
Okay.
right, the net pension liability for
Right.
the last 10 years.
Right, so this
Right.
is a schedule that's required because of GASB, and when GASB enacted this, they enacted it in 2015, and the standard said that you did not have to go back in time, so it would be from that point going forward, and as it fills in, then once it's 10 years is there, then it'll always be 10 years, so then you can start dropping off the oldest one, but it'll always be just 10 years of information presented, but it has to do with how much the contributions are. So there's an employee and an employer. And so you can see here for each of the 2 years, there's the contractually required contributions. That's the employee plus employer citywide. And then how much was actuarially determined, that's a tough word, and was contributed, which we make those payments as we go. So there's no shortfall in that current funding of any of the CalPERS. And then we have the covered payroll, and then the contribution as a percentage of payroll, that's just a calculation. So this is just the ongoing CalPERS liability of the city and how much the city has to contribute in total. So it's employee, employer, both. CalPERS is the retirement, and it also is in place of Social Security. So there's no Social Security tax. Instead, we have this. This plan takes its place, and that's a municipal thing. So that's what this is for. And eventually, they do want to see 10-year trending so that everyone has that disclosure.
Okay. Let's see if I had another question here. On page 63, this also is a payable to the pension plan.
Able to the pension. Yes. Uh-huh.
Is that for just for the end of the year payroll that?
That's just the timing of when the contributions are owed versus when they're paid. We've been having some difficulty with the submissions with CalPERS, so that is for more than one pay period.
Okay.
But we're not outside of their requirements, and we still continue to fuss with that
I know it's
filing.
erratic, yeah.
It is, it's not an easy task.
Okay.
So, but we're working on ways to get that streamlined, and we're working with the CalPERS as well as Paychecks to see if there's a way to do some electronic file transfers, because to get the reports out of Paychecks, then manipulate all the information, then you go to the CalPERS site and you have to enter every person one at a time, the employee and the employer, and then when you get to the end, hope it matches so that you can then make the wire transfer, and it just is exceedingly time consuming with 120 employees, and it happens
Okay.
every other week.
Okay,
So
I
it's
knew it
just
was
a
erratic.
timing in it, as far as when we get the payments made, but we continue to struggle and work with it. We're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was it for
Okay.
my questions.
Anything else?
I will, can I follow up on the first questions he got on that, on the, the community services and the thing on this is, you know, outside the Four Season, and I don't understand why we, the city, took part of the, you know, the landscaping and taking care of the landscaping and hardscaping outside the Four Season, even in Solera. even in Tournament Hills, part of it is taken care by the association, and part of it is majority is by the city.
Correct.
Before, what we did is before this crunch we have, we do contract them, contract the services in there.
Correct. It was
Is
all
that-
contracted out, but it was still a city responsibility.
That's correct.
So
That's correct.
the cost actually was, and they've done some analysis between doing it as contract labor versus in-house. And right now, it's cheaper in-house. If the scope of service starts to expand further, we may have to look at outsourcing part of that service, but right now, we're not. And the shared, the areas and the determination of who's responsible for what is all part of those original developer agreements that are already in place. And so those assignments and assumptions already done. And, the whys, I have no idea. I don't know how they got set up that way. I don't know if there was some
It was the abutment to the
consideration.
main thoroughfare is what
Because
drove that.
the city would take care of what everybody could
Was-
see.
exactly.
And, I think that's probably common.
Right.
But it's, as far as the actual whys and getting down to, it all goes back to those original developer agreements.
Yeah, that's the thing that I noticed that. Why don't we just give it to their associations or the developers, not maintain the outside portion? Let's say in Tournament Hills, right now it's not being taken care by us. When I say by us, by the city.
Right.
It's not well maintained. Not like before we have the contractors and everything. It's all clean and everything. Again, still the city is still responsible for it. But the thing is, we're working thin manpower on every I drove by on your side and everything because I know which side is we maintain. I think it's, if you audit in there, there's a almost 200 small parcel that given to the city instead of giving it to
The homeowner association.
there you go.
Yep.
That's the thing. That's why when I look in here, there's a difference of we save a lot. I mean, if you look in there, 2015 we got 4.8 and now it's 3. There's a good savings, but the thing is, we're compromising something.
Right, what changed? And so one of the things that current management, one of the things we've been working on is, okay, what do we actually get in the assessments now that we really have a handle on it? We're breaking down what do we get in each area, how does that come in, and okay, how much work is actually involved in each area? Now that's the part we're still working on. So how many man hours to do this or
There you
that?
go.
How much if this has to be redone every 3 years, or do we have to do something with special tree trimming, or do we have, so we're starting to evaluate that to determine, do we have the right funding to get the things accomplished we need to? Because we don't want to keep, what management in the past did was just all the money went into one bucket and they just made sure everything got done. And now we're looking at, we've got the money and we know what it's to be used for, make sure we're using it for that, and then we can evaluate level of service based on that and make some decisions.
I agree on that because the manpower plus the benefits and everything, he has to balance off on doing contracts and the city.
Right now it's
I like that.
city cheaper, but
Yeah.
as we start looking at doing more, it may turn out, you hit that point where you outsource, so.
There you go. Thank you.
So I assume that process is underway.
Oh, yes.
So what you're saying, Milana, is, for example, at Four Seasons, along Potrero or Highland Springs, on the outside of Four Seasons, is what
Right.
the city
The
maintains.
city, the
Right.
city maintain that.
Because I know we maintain the,
The
The,
inside,
right there on the gate.
right.
Yours on the gate.
It's the same in Solera.
That's cool.
If it's inside the wall, it's
Okay.
maintained, and the wall is maintained by the HOA. If it's outside of the wall and
it's city.
interfaces with the street, it's maintained
By the
by the city.
And I know there's pockets here and there all through the city where you think it wasn't the city, but it is. So we're also working on figuring that out too, to make sure that if we're responsible for it, that we're taking care of it, But if you go back to the maps, the original agreements, and we're not supposed to be doing it, that we stop doing it. So we're trying to make sure that it goes both ways and that we get everything identified properly.
Exactly.
And that's a huge undertaking, so.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add that I think this also applies to areas that are not gated communities. Like if
Yes.
you're looking at the Four Seasons area, directly next to it is the past KB tract that was part of Seneca Springs. As you go up into that community, into other developer communities there, all the main arterial streets there are supposed to be maintained by the services fee, and there's an obligation there that's been committed to, based upon the accrual and the collection of the assessments.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and,
Right. There's a lot of them, and we're finding there's a lot of little pockets here and there where we're responsible for it, but we hadn't really looked at it. So we're trying to map the areas out too, and make sure that we capture them all to get a really good assessment of what it's really costing, so we can decide what we can or can't do.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah.
if I could ask a question also going back to the same area, on page 22. So then if I read this correctly, the center column for the Community Facilities Fund, the taxes and special assessments, that 7 million range in there,
Yes.
that includes all assessments for the CF, not the CFD, but the services assessment.
Correct. It's the services and the administration, and then any future facilities assessments. I believe there are some areas where if it's not fully built out, there's a component of that in there as well, and we keep that all in this.
An accrual capability for that?
Right.
So is this represent the assessment number or the actual revenues collected during that period?
It's not the debt service piece of the assessment. That's going to be in the agency funds, but this is everything else.
Okay, now, not the debt service, but when this is actually showing the revenue that was collected, not just what was assessed on property taxes. This was the actual inflow to the city.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Outside of what was collected on the
Talking about the net.
right.
Right.
It's the
And then-
net after the debt service collection. We take that out. That's not here.
And just for picking this category, so I have a better understanding, and just selecting this section, because we're talking about it. So then the expenditure levels down below, the 2 million represents what was actually direct cost expenditure for community services for those areas, and then the other categories are public works. Does that mean, let's say, for the irrigation for those areas, or?
Public Works is going to be streets, sidewalks, lights,
Pointed out.
street lights, that kind of work. And then community services, more parks. They'll have irrigation and fixing irrigation pipes and the trees and the landscaping, and so that's how that.
This is reflective of not only labor costs and payroll costs, but also other costs such as
Correct.
irrigation and utility costs and everything in that area.
Absolutely everything. Mhm.
Okay.
Nancy?
I have some, but.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to play off of actually one of Sharon's questions.
Okay.
I just have to remember which page it was. 73.
73.
Okay.
Now, has this changed in this version from the last draft we
From the
looked
draft?
at?
I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't think so either. You know, for me, when the documents are this big and you really want somebody to really look at it, and it goes draft to draft like we did, I would really like it if you could show the draft revisions in the border or something like
So
that.
you know where to look to say, oh, that's where the change
So I
was.
don't have to like take the old one and match and say,
Right.
okay, now 73, did we change?
Right, and that's what I did, and that's why I don't think this page changed, so I didn't look at it again.
I know. So
But I
I'm
did
just
look-
using it as an example for my point.
It's the same? Okay,
Okay,
good.
it's okay. I wasn't really questioning that
No,
as much as the principle
I understand.
of it would be so clear to me if there was some marker that said, on pages that you do go from one draft to another, that says this is the draft change from one to the next.
Yeah, I could put stars and then, yeah,
Or
something, just so you
Or
can
can you
see
do
it.
it by color? I mean,
Color is good. Sometimes just, you can even do margin markers where it's in the margin
Right.
when there are things changed
Right.
on there.
Right.
If you don't want to print in color because it's expensive, you could do the black and white version on that.
Yep.
But I am telling you, I'm a big advocate. When you go draft to draft,
To
and
see
it's a
what the
big document,
changes are.
of doing that so that there are no details overlooked when I'm looking at it in terms of one change to the other.
That has a name in Word. It's track changes?
Draft tracking.
Track
Change tracking, sorry. And then the other thing, which is kind of along the same line, in business, whenever I had to do a significant document like this that was going to go through potentially multiple revisions, in the bottom, I was required to put which version it was.
Yeah.
So in other words, I would have to do like V
These are version 2, right.
point, and then, so that if at any point in time, this is a public records request or an auditor's looking at it, they can automatically tell. Because sometimes documents even get reworked in the same day
Oh,
and
yes.
presented to a group, and then it goes back and gets reworked. So even on the same day, if it was like the second one of the day, I had like, 2A, 2B. Now, it wasn't something I dreamed up. It was a requirement
Sure.
of all the documents, and it was true of almost every good-sized company I ever worked at.
Well, it's funny, we've
So-
labeled the files that way, so if you pull it up, you can see V1, V2, V3,
just
but it doesn't print
Stick it
anywhere.
in the
Got
foot-
it.
in the
footnote.
footnote, and it will be clear.
Okay.
At any point in time, what one you're looking at. So that was just a general suggestion.
Okay, definitely.
I really appreciate you explaining the numbers on the community services, so we shall see that changing from year to year.
Yes,
As we
as-
get better at tracking it. But
And we
it
can
shouldn't be
refine it.
crazy markedly different, right?
No, it
No.
shouldn't. We should be,
Okay.
once we really get it, tied down, we have a good handle on it, we know what it is, then, like I said, we can figure out what our level of services can be, and then we'll have to come up with, okay, if that's not what the public wants, then how do we pay for the difference? And so that'll, but all those discussions, I think we're a ways off from that still.
Right.
But definitely that is the direction we're headed.
And maybe you can clarify this point for me. I could not, this, council is going to have, when you finish with this, council is going to have to accept it at some point in time.
Yes.
So council has to have full confidence in whatever has been presented. So that is a good reason why, as part of the audit right now, we don't do like 10 years back on financial statements, because we can't rely on 10 years back.
Correct.
And then council couldn't accept it because you'd have to be then accepting the whole package, which would be back a couple of years, which even the auditors keep telling us was a fudgy period of time, and we know that.
Right.
So until we get to a clean point where we really truly know the ground we're standing on, we cannot, in any conscionable way, include prior years to it.
Right. The only thing that we do, excuse me, is in the MD&A, we are comparing what it looked like in the prior year to this year. This year, it's a little more comparable. It's a little easier to look at. Prior year was really, really hard because, no one here had a lot of information on fiscal year 14, so it was difficult. As you roll forward and we get more sophisticated with the system and our reporting and we do better and better, yes, we'll start doing longer-term trending. We're already doing longer-term forecasting now, so we're going to have better reporting. We'll have better statistical information, models, graphs, all of that will just be more enhanced as we go forward.
Well, thank you, because you don't get it both ways. You don't get to say, oh, we did really terrible reporting before, nobody kept track of anything. We put things in one bucket, we didn't segment things out. oh, why don't you include all those years in here so we can approve it?
Right.
You don't get it both ways.
Correct.
It's common sense. You can't combine them.
Right.
Now, the 2016, 2017, do you expect that to be end of first quarter next year, that we could have those numbers, or do you think it might take a little longer?
My goal is to have it done in the first quarter of next year.
That would be great.
We have filing requirements with the State Controller's Office, which are the end of February,
Right.
which, push and pull, don't know if I'll be able to file actual final numbers, but my hope is as we get more caught up and more caught up, my numbers that I know in February should be a whole lot closer to the audit numbers that hopefully get issued in March.
Okay.
So I won't have these huge differences, but you can't just skip the deadlines for the state. So they end up getting an annual filing with whatever your numbers are at that point in time. That can cause a little bit of frustration, but if we're on time, if we can get caught up and be on time, then there's really no significant difference between those filings with the state, which are totally different, and the audit. They'll all start to look similar, and we're getting there.
I got lots for the internal control room.
Okay. Is there anything else on the draft report?
I had one other question.
Go ahead.
One thing I noticed was missing and was capital assets, infrastructure,
Correct.
and depreciation.
Correct.
And I threw on YouTube, listened to the last meeting, so I did hear some of the discussion going on with that.
Right.
And I've noticed that there has been a contract awarded for inventorying. And that's-
Correct.
Okay, so that is in process right now?
The inventory was completed. It was done in May. The street assessment also was done May to early part of June. We've got all the final reports. We're doing the assessment for valuation. The one thing that didn't get inventoried are buildings and land. And that's what we're trying to pinpoint now so that we can get all of it identified on the schedule, put values to them, and get everything recorded. But we'll be able to record it as of June 30, 17, because that's when the inventory was done, and we haven't bought new buildings or anything, so I don't have to worry about that. And so we should be able to make that improvement to the financial statements, which is the only reason we have the adverse opinion on fiscal 16. So it should eliminate that for fiscal 17. We just have to finish putting all of our numbers together, and then we'll be giving that to council as well.
Now, do we have the same vendor that was awarded the contract performing both the inventory and the valuations?
For the movable assets, like the computers and the chairs and the tables and all
more the
that kind of
capital.
stuff. Yeah, those are the same company. They've given us equitable values of what they would be today. Then it's our responsibility as management to say, okay, but these things are old, so should they have been depreciated already? How old are they? And come up with that value and then get it recorded. And then the auditor, of course, will have to look at our assumptions and determine the reasonableness of those. There's doing it so far after the fact, there's got to be some assumptions. There's just no way to know
Right.
anything with any absolute certainty. But we will be putting it all together. And like I said, then that schedule, when we have it done, will go to council so that they can see it and approve it.
But the intention for this audit is just to keep the current documentation as is, showing a future report out capability with the
As
reasoning
best as we
for the-
could
Right, okay.
pull the numbers from the previous one, which, we just really didn't have anything.
Anything.
So this one's a little bit more concrete.
Right.
Than what we started with the year before.
Right,
And then
this one-
2016, 17, that one should be excellent, because we've had Milana nailing down those numbers this past year. So that should be where we really see some solid indications from.
Right. And then starting with 17, 18, which is the year we're in now, we should start seeing the
trend.
better management. We'll be able to see some of the shifting and the moving and making sure things are going in the right place.
Are we looking at keeping a perpetual type, constant inventory where it's just showing?
Yes, indeed.
It's a GASB requirement, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I am working on the implementation of our software right now too for our fixed asset tracking. We're getting close to getting all that up and running, but it's going to be tied to not just the type of asset, but what department uses it, where the physical location of it is. If there's a specific staff person that we want to assign to that particular thing, that works well for the cars and trucks, it works for the equipment, and we're going to be tracking, or trying to track all the IT equipment, even though that won't be reflected on the financial statements because it's below the threshold, but we still want to track it because we need to know when is it time to replace and make sure we're not missing anything. So it's very exciting, but yeah, that implementation has been a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but we're getting close, so.
Thank you.
Taking all the fun out of the internal controls segment.
Oh, sorry,
Hannah.
sorry.
Okay, the last question.
Any other?
On the page 68, you just missed, I don't know, I'm just looking on my old copy in here. We struck the where savings could be realized. Are we adding that, or are we just forget that?
No.
I have the new one, I just,
On 68?
Oh, 68.
68.
Yeah,
68.
okay. I was on.
I don't know, I have my old one, it's still 68. I don't know, maybe numbering is
What do
different.
you got?
Might be, is that for
Okay.
the subsequent events?
Yep,
Yep, note to financial statements.
yeah. It's
Number
here.
13.
Here you
Okay.
go, hon. Sorry.
It's
That-
Thought I was talking to Jack.
Is that the same?
Okay.
Oh, you
So
got
this is
100
the
and change in there? Was not reflected on the new, I got the new one here. It's like what you have here.
Okay.
But this one is reflected. Am I with you on that? I mean, I could show it this to you. I don't
We
know.
had, I mean, originally we had more verbiage.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
perfect for that.
It may be
I
that
just
the
want to,
auditor thought it was
because
too
we
much.
distributed this,
can't believe it.
Right.
last week.
Okay.
And somebody come back and say,
Oh, we're saving to realize, yes, you're right, it isn't there. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to hit him up with that one. Okay, got
just in
it.
case somebody comes back.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay.
I think the only other question I had was, after everything was said and done, Milana, did you find anything in here that you felt needed to be beefed up more as far as procedures and policies than what you've already been working on? Was there anything surprising or new in the audit?
Not in the audit, not in the actual numbers. It actually, when they came in and they started asking questions and I was able to give them the work papers, I got a lot of comfort knowing that I had set up the new system in the way that worked best for the
Great.
reporting. So that part I thought worked really well. And in doing that, it also gave me ideas of a couple of other things I still needed to tweak in the system. We've added one more little special fund that's helping
Good.
to track some of the smaller grants that just kind of hit and miss through the year. So it actually was good, I thought,
Great.
to go through all of that.
Okay, wonderful. Okay,
Okay.
if there's no other questions, we will move on to number 3.
So do we recommend that this?
Oh,
go to
yeah, do you
town?
need us to recommend this for council?
If the committee feels comfortable with that, then yes, then I can present it to council next Tuesday.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
I'll make the motion that the committee recommend to council the approval of the
Acceptance?
acceptance of the draft as currently, as we
Presented?
currently have now.
Okay, with just the minor change on page 68 that Rick
Correct.
showed. Okay.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Milana, great work. Okay, we'll move on to number 3, Finance Department policies, cash management, and cash receipts.
Yes, these are the last two of the like general policies for the finance department that I promised we would get drafted so that we can put the whole booklet, if you will, together in January for approval. These are the last two that I've done. One is just cash management, kind of what do we do with cash, how do we expect to manage it, and what kinds of accounts and the reconciliations. And then the cash receipts process. The cash receipts process is a little bit generalized, only because we continue to refine that even now. We're trying to get that more integrated with the software. So we're currently working on that, so I kept that fairly broad. But I didn't know if, with everything we've got tonight, that's been leading up to tonight, I didn't know if the committee members had the opportunity to read through these. They are fairly short, but I didn't know if you had the opportunity to review them so that if you had any comments.
I went through your cash receipt daily procedures, and I thought that was very good.
Good.
The way that you've got it accounted for throughout the day, and then ending up, at the end of the day with your starting amount for the next one.
Yes.
So I thought that was very good and detailed enough.
Okay.
I had a couple of comments.
Go ahead.
Under the cash management, bank reconciliations,
Yes.
I get, I'm the treasurer, but I'm biased. But I feel like the treasurer should get a copy of the bank reconciliation.
Oh, absolutely, we can do that. We have that as a segregated function. So we have one person doing the weekly general account reconciliations. And you can regenerate them out of the system anytime. I'll show you how you can do that.
Cool.
And then we have a different person who's doing all of the monthly reconciliations of all the other accounts. So, it's really easy to pull those up and reprint any of them and review them.
Along those lines, I have a note in here too. I've seen an awful lot of fraud where the bank reconciliation was received by one person, handed off to the person who does the reconciliation, who amends or changes that reconciliation, or changes that original bank statement. I'd like to see something in there that when she's signing off, that there be a little spot where she reviews the original to the one used for the reconciliation, just to take care of that little step, because it is very commonly done.
Well, sadly, fraud is everywhere.
Of course.
It's just awful. And even the city, we caught some fraud early on, got it taken care of, but it did cause us a few hiccups in trying to get the cash activities going the way we wanted it to. It slowed down some of it. But we've put some other procedures in place which have minimized our concern with some of the fraudulent check cashing issues out in the world. We have that handled now. As far as the original bank statements, I hadn't thought of it, but when they come in, I will have our Director of Administration take a look at that. She's outside of the finance function entirely. She can agree that to the ones that we're using that come off the online printout to make sure that they agree.
And then agree that after the reconciliation is done. Yeah,
We could do that.
so that there's a process through there.
Okay. And I also had a comment on or actually a question on the cash receipts and deposits.
Yes.
Back where the cashiers, no, I'm sorry, at the end of the day,
Yes.
and you have it numbered 1, 2, 3, 4.
Uh-huh.
I'm confused between number 4 and then in the next session under deposits, letter B.
Okay.
I'm confused because they say the bag is sealed and placed in the drop safe. And then under B, it says they provide the cash summary and then
Right. It's
place
the- It's a
In the
copy,
drop safe, sorry.
right? The deposit slip is the carbon copy that finance gets. So I need to make that be a duplicate deposit slip on B. Township provides a cash summary report. The cash summary report does not go in the drop safe. The only thing that goes in the drop safe is the money and the original deposit slip. So we have that. And then there's the copy of the deposit slip with the cash summary report that everybody has signed off on. We open the drop safe in the morning. And we take out the bags because we have to log them into the armored truck register. We don't open the bags,
Okay,
but we have to log them in. So we do that, and then the armored truck picks them up.
okay. I was confused about that.
Then I have a question about the process. Saying the cashier counts out the beginning drawer balance in the morning. At the end of the night, is that counted out to confirm that there's $300 at the end of the night? Okay, so it's double counted at the end of the night. And then does it get sealed up and locked away?
Yes, it's locked away. And then in the morning they get it, count it again, make sure that nothing happened to it, and it's
Right.
good.
Okay.
Absolutely. And none of the cashiers have any access to the financial reporting, and none of the finance staff can do anything with the cashiering. We can run reports, but that's it. So, so that is how we've got the cash coming over the counters at the different locations are all being entered by non-finance department staff.
I also noticed I was reading through the internal controls report, and where they were talking about the police department is using manual receipts.
Correct.
Are you tracking those now?
Yes, we were before. It just, when they went in and did the check, what we discovered was that there were some inconsistencies in the way it was being handled. There was more than one receipt book. And then we came in and said, no, there will be one receipt book so that we can capture the sequential receipt numbers. That only happens at night. And so my question at the time was, well, then why are we taking money at night? And it was explained to me that if your car has been towed and you need to get it out of the tow yard, you have to pay right then. And so that is why they can, from time to time, take cash in at night after the cashiers at the front desk have left. And so, there you go.
Do we have to take cash often, or is it
No,
like
it's not
mostly
that
checks?
No, when you pick up your car, they are not going to accept a check.
Okay, so it has to
It
be
is
cash.
And it has to
or
be exact amount,
And it has to be
right?
exact. There's no making change for anybody.
Can it be
There's-
credit card?
I don't think so. I do not believe they have access to those terminals
All right.
without the whole system being up and running.
So it has to be cash? Okay.
Are those fees always fixed?
Yes,
So it'll be the same every time?
yes. On the release of vehicles, it's always exactly the same.
Okay. So are there storage fees included there?
It's whatever they charge the fee, the fee, whatever the fee the police department charges is all the same
Okay.
for each vehicle.
Okay. What I'm concerned with and what I have seen is particularly in small courts, justice courts, there's a real problem with somebody coming in to pay, they pay in cash, the clerk changes the amount of the fee or the fine and records a lesser amount than was paid.
Oh, right.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking, are those fixed? So every vehicle that's released is gonna be
Same
X number of
charge.
dollars, and so when they run through 3 cars was released, so X
have
times 3
three.
cars, and so that amount will always be,
A multiple of, yes.
okay, very- thank you.
It doesn't happen that often, though. Usually it's, during the day when somebody's at that front counter, but occasionally it happens at night.
Okay, any other questions on the policies?
I'd just like to say, I think they look very comprehensive with the understanding that the software will integrate and get
Right.
adjusted as they go. I think she's done an excellent job on them.
Great, thank you.
Well, and like we said before, this is a living document.
Yes.
So in January, I'll bring all of them and I'll index them so that we have them in sequence. And then if it looks good when I put the whole package together, then we can recommend, hopefully, council to accept it. And then through the year, we'll start doing more refining. We'll hit some of the more specific things that the finance department touches.
Right, that's a great start. Okay, so do you need anything other than just the comments on that, Milana? We're good?
No,
Okay.
I'll just bring it back in January.
Okay. Okay, good. We will move on to item number 4, which is the fiscal year 15-16 draft internal control report.
Yay!
Yay.
The internal control report, I was very happy with it for one really good, outstanding reason, and that is that they didn't have anything new to add that we had forgotten or left out or had let drop. So to have no new comments made my day. And then we had 7 that we were able to have dropped off the report because they did not apply in fiscal year 16 any longer. So I was really happy with the outcome of this internal control report. And I did update my management comments for him because most of them are the same, but some of them have changed just a little bit where we've made a little more progress or we've determined something just a touch different. But for the most part, it's very similar to what it was in the prior year. So don't
That's
know if
great.
there were any specific concerns on any of the points. We're getting so close to having them all handled and done, and a lot of them I think are still going to go away or have minor tweaks in fiscal 17, but we'll also have a new set of eyes. So you never know what you might come up with a new auditor.
Right, and just for anyone that doesn't know, we're in the process of an RFP for a new accounting agency, so the next one coming in will be different than the one that's done the last 3 or the last 2? The last 2. So we're working on that now. Okay. Okay, do we have any questions on the internal control report?
Did I already burst all the bubbles, Nancy? There's like no more questions now. Oh,
She's got some.
I tried.
You ready? Go ahead.
You might have to put me on a timer.
No, you're good. Go.
Okay. Now, a lot of these things, I believe you will probably say, this has been done, or we're going to do this, et cetera. So I expect that.
Okay.
Okay, on page 3, it's referring to our accounting policies and procedures. One of the problems that I've always seen with policies and procedures is that it's, once you finally get them done, they need to be updated right away by the time you finally get them done. So do you have in mind a cycle that you're going to go through? Every 6 months, every whatever, where you're going to be able to keep it updated? Because unless you kind of throw the stake in the ground right away, you know.
Right. Well,
Later in an audit, you hear that things are out
Same
of sync.
thing, right. Well, that's one of the things we just are doing now. So the accounting department policies and procedures themselves, we will have the generalized, and as long as we keep reviewing through them, for right now, I think we work on deciding which areas to refine, and we'll keep refining and refining. But I think we need to do a comprehensive look at all of them at least annually, just in case
I agree.
something changes, and you never know. But
So
you
I
know,
think you need to put it in there,
that we're going to
that
review
we
it.
have to review them annually. If you don't put it in, then you're not
It looks like it's
tied
in
to
there.
it.
City calendar.
No, I think we have that in
Financial
there, don't we?
policy and procedure manuals will continue to be refined, and existing policies and procedures will be
And
reviewed
updated
by the committee on an
periodically.
annual basis.
Okay, so updated periodically will be a comprehensive update every year after the review process. Okay,
That,
thank
and
you.
that's just at the top of
Okay.
page 8.
Good.
Does the, if I could use the right term, does the GFOA offer regular training conferences or whatever?
I think they have an annual conference, and I haven't gotten too deep into that only because I knew there was no way I could attend anything. But I wanted to look at them and see if they do any webcasts, because now that we're getting things kind of regulated and on a regular schedule. I would love to be more up to date on things. They like to keep the finance officers up to date on new legislative standards that are coming up, things like that. So now that we're getting to that point, then that's something I'm going to try and look into.
Yeah, and maybe kick this out to our council members here. Is it appropriate that we make that attendance at that by a member of the finance a requirement in our policies and procedures? I know it has some cost, but it also plugs them into that attitude and gets us linked in with the others who are doing that type of function.
I think it's a valid point. Do you want to talk to the city manager about it, or?
I can do that, and because
Yes,
I
At
know
least get his feedback on it, because maybe he wants more than one person.
Yeah.
it could be, because this was the
And I don't know what
first year
the
he
costs
did.
are, you know, I'm sure it's not held in Beaumont, so, you know, there's gonna be some travel and some lost.
Yeah, I think they
Trying.
usually do it like in the Sacramento area, actually.
Right.
But I know that city manager just did his first League of Cities here in California, and I know that when he came back from that, he was thinking that we needed to maybe change
Yeah.
things. So I can talk to him, I'll look at the GFOA, the kinds of things that they offer, and then he and I can go through and determine the best way to do it.
Right.
But sure, we can definitely look at that.
Yeah, it's so often, it's so easy, oh, I don't have time to go, and then you don't, and then you get out of the sink, but
I
those
think also-
reignite and get people excited. You know, with the CPA, you have mandatory training.
Right.
And I think if whatever's out there that's mandatory that collects to that, it keeps it in the forefront of the employee's
Right,
mind.
Right. I think a lot of the accounting agencies or CPA, whatever we call them, I think they're also good about doing update seminars throughout the year too, which is nice because you're getting to hear it from their point of view and how they're going to be looking at things.
And
The
So I-
actual
and-
GASB update is in January,
Yes.
so
Right.
I'm attending that one.
And
Yeah.
perhaps when you're discussing that, maybe a better track is to require the finance department to have a mandated X number of hours of training in a year.
Sure.
You know, it doesn't have to be a whole lot.
Right, but just something to refresh and keep on top of the new regulations
Correct.
and, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I will talk to the city manager. We'll come up with some guidelines for that.
Can we go back to Nancy's statement on page 3? If we could change that to evaluated and updated annually instead of evaluated annually and updated periodically?
Well, that's his language. That's the auditor's language. I can't change page 3.
Oh, okay,
But my comments are on page 7 and 8.
okay,
So if you go to page 7 and 8, management's response, that's me.
okay, sorry.
Okay. I mean, I can always ask him to change his language, but I'm
No,
not sure
I
he
mean, as
will.
long as we're doing,
Right.
stating that at minimum, this is how we're going to do it, I think
Right.
that's a very good point.
Right. So my management comment begins on page 7 and it ends at the very top of page 8. And I took, because finding number 1 is a lot of different pieces, I did the response in exactly the same order of
Okay,
those pieces.
perfect,
Yeah.
okay.
I made the same. I have schedule, question mark next to that. Just,
What page are you on, Nancy?
I have, when she refers to the answer on page 7 and 8, I have another question mark that
Oh.
says schedule.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of the same concept.
Right.
And it isn't that, I realize updated periodically is really good, because that means when you change something, you update it live so that it's fresh and the way things are done now, and I'm a full supporter of that. But I'm also a supporter of throwing a stake in the ground too, and saying, and.
At minimum.
At minimum.
Yeah.
Excuse me, when you do the annual review, that all changes will be brought up to date at that point.
Right.
So that there's both
Right.
on that schedule, that's all. And that was my point from page 3, continued to page 8.
Okay.
Thank you.
Keep going.
Okay, sorry. All right. Okay, this, I brought this up before, and I realized that we're running as fast as we can.
Page 5.
I'm sorry, I'm on page 5. And it's the fraud thing. You know, it's
Yes.
such a horrible word. And I just feel like it's easy for us to do a bare bones initial start program where we say, you know, and this is the fraud procedures, this is who you report to, you know, you will be anonymous, people get the information at new hire. Maybe it's a document that when any vendor does business with the city, they get the document and they sign that they've gotten the document, and it's a nice little one-pager on if you do you see any fraud with the city, please report it to us through this process. It just seems like it's so easy for us to begin to do a chip away at that. That I don't ever want to see it on another audit report. But again, where we haven't put in some basic framework. Again, we can tweak it as we get more resources, or we start with it, or we could say, well, we didn't put this in, and we can modify it. But I just really like to see.
We can look at
Something
that.
there.
I'm not 100% sure what our Director of Administration has done with that resource yet, but I will circle back with her, find out what she's got, and then we could try and put something together. We could even bring it to this committee and see if you think it's a good stepping off point, or if we need to expand. You know, we'll come up with something for the fraud.
I'd like to
Discrepancy.
see something even on an annual basis as part of human resources, that even if it's just a little 5-minute presentation that can be broadcast over the internet, that all employees tick off every year, a little reminder, and it can literally be a 3 or 4 minute presentation that they could access on the computer, and it gets ticked off, and HR tracks it to see that every employee does it every single year.
Yeah.
It keeps it in their mind, reminds them of where to go and who to report to, and it creates a great public
Right.
response out there when someone asks what we're doing.
Right. I'll find out what she has done, or what she has in mind, or what we've got, and we'll bring it back and let the committee take a look at that. Definitely.
If I can mention, sometimes there's, you know, my organizations I've been involved with, there's been training, online training like you're mentioning, where you can combine fraud training with other compliance issues or waste.
Sexual harassment.
And
Do it all at
you can
once.
combine them all at one time, and you can include in that the training on the definitions of the different type of issues, along with the reporting capability of how you would actually do it to management and others. And it could just be done, you know, once a year as part of a performance evaluation. Ahead of that, did you do this online training? Give a duration. I mean, I realize all employees probably do not have access to computers.
They don't, but we do have the departments that, well, not just the departments that don't really have computer access, but all the departments. They have, they're supposed to have monthly safety meetings.
Right.
And I know that our administrative director is starting to attend those as well, to make sure that there's oversight for those. So that could also be a forum
A
where it comes up.
presentation where there's a checklist and then sign-ins, and yes.
Yep, so I will talk with her about it.
Thank you. Want me to keep rolling here?
Keep going.
Page 6, sometimes I have to catch up to my own notes. I just really thought that was a very good point, that most fraud's detected by fellow employees.
Yes.
So
Right.
if you train the employees, then you've boosted the system considerably. So I really thought that was a good point. Okay, I think my next questions are, page 7. At the bottom, I've got a question on September 20th. City Council approved and adopted the final version of policies. And I have a question mark, training. So we've got the policies, but how are you training people on the policies?
The policies that are noted here are the very broad citywide
Sure.
kind of policies. And the finance department, it's easy. I have the ability to talk with them, and we have not regular meetings, but we do have meetings where we talk about the different things that we're looking for and what responsibilities are, and we're actually shifting some responsibilities right now to further segregate things. And so we talk about it just in general all the time. Other departments, I'm not 100% sure how they cover it as far as educating their own staff on, we have the responsibility of this or that. I know they get directives from the finance department from time to time and think, they're at it again. But that's not a bad thing either. So,
But do you train, like, when the police department is taking the money for the cars that have been towed or whatever, do you train them on your segment of the policy, or do they
on
get
what their
trained by-
responsibilities are,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
So you
Yes.
train them there, and you would train the pool people on how to properly handle cash, et cetera?
Right.
Okay, so, and then my only other thought on that is, just have them, when they're a new hire, make them sign that they read the policies. Do you
Right.
do that?
Right, I believe the director of administration has started doing that now
Okay.
that we have them, because for a long time, they really didn't have any written policies, but
Yeah.
definitely, we are
Make
getting
them
to a
sign
point.
that- And when you update them annually, if it's a substantial update, you might have to
Right.
send them out again and get people to sign again.
Right, or if it specifically impacts a particular department, absolutely, we could take it back to them for acknowledgement.
Yeah, I think it's important to have records of when that training was done and who attended.
Anybody else that needs time while I'm jumping to questions?
I think we're all
Feel
jumping in
like
on
you're all-
behind yours.
Sorry. Okay.
We'll see if there's anything left when you're done.
right.
Okay, page 10. Okay, my first point on page 10 is the bottom of the first paragraph, Finance Department has created monthly, quarterly, semi-annual checklist, et cetera.
Yes,
And my question that I wrote in the margin is this going to be adequate to address this?
yes.
Okay.
And we've actually started doing it. I have a checklist, and it's not 100% complete, but I have one for July, August, September, and October. We're
Okay.
starting to work on the one for November, because if you don't have it, that's how you forget things.
Okay.
And I've told the staff, if you complete something, you check it off, but you had to do something else, write it on there so we can add it to the list so that it doesn't get missed.
Okay,
So
my
we're
experience
working
with
on that.
checklists are, they're really good if they're used, and they're really good if they're turned into someone. So, are you doing the checklist?
No, I'm
They're
receiving
doing
them.
the checklist, and then I think you should report to the city manager that everybody's checklist has been turned in, and, that everything's in compliance.
Right,
So that all you need is a gap at one level.
right.
And
Yep.
the efficacy of the process is a good exercise, but it doesn't make it all the way out.
Right, and we have the checklist, and, the big items, they're all signed off. But we have a few, need to reconcile this, need to do that, double check against this to that. There are still some that aren't done. There's still some I'm trying to grasp how do you know what that number is kind of thing. I mean, I can go back and say, yeah, it's gotta be close, and but I wanna find ways of saying, this is the process we go through on a monthly or quarterly basis. And so I'm still struggling with some of those, what I thought would be easy. So some of those checklists aren't really complete because we don't know how to do some of those steps. But absolutely, they come to me, and then I know where the holes are, and that's really what we're working towards now, is filling in all the holes. And then those checklists can be done routinely, and they'll make a lot more sense, and it'll be, that's how you know you've got everything accurately accounted for.
Thank you. It was just a suggestion to make sure that we, on a summary level,
Yes.
are really keeping track of that. At
Absolutely.
the bottom of page 10, there's, you're limiting the ability of void entries by cashiering staff.
Correct.
Should we limit or eliminate?
Limit. Because there are times when they do an entry and the customer's in front of them and
Oh,
they
I see.
screwed it up.
Sure. All right, you're right.
And so, bottom line, their ticket report
You're right.
for receipts still has to match the total cash that they count out of their drawer. And because everything seems to now be tying to something else, there's less ability for them to just completely delete a transaction, because if it's a permit, it's got to be in the system for permits to know that it can go to the next step. If it was a fee that was paid, it has to go into this system because we have a fee credit that we're also checking on the back end. So we're doing things that eliminate that, but we don't want them to actually have the ability to go in and say, you know what, I'm going to delete all my transactions for the last hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so it has to be a transaction that they're working in, that they can void and go on. There will be the ability to void a closed transaction if something is wrong, but we want to change it so that it has to be done by somebody at a different level. And that's going to be a step that is integrated into the new software upgrade for that particular piece of the software, so.
Can we get a target date on this?
I would love to have a target date on that. I've asked, I don't have it yet. Originally, I thought it was going to be this winter. It was supposed to be November, December, and they're telling me that they are backlogged on that upgrade implementation.
This is the vendor.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get an accurate time frame out of them, because if they don't give me something, I'm going to start messing with the software and figure out a way to do it myself. We really need those steps to be put into the cashiering piece. I realize it's just a cashiering software that's really, it interfaces with things, but it still needs to have that functionality for supervisor sign
Where a
off.
second person can
Right.
sign off on it being canceled.
Right, and my guess is that there's a way to do it, and it's just not there. So if they're gonna be extending the time frame for the upgrade, then I need them to look at what we got now and put something in there to safeguard that.
Is that Tyler?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I used to have to do a lot of RFPs and contracts for software companies that needed to do work at companies. And I started putting in the RFP and in the contract that there would be a report at the end of the year on any request that we had made to whatever software company it was that exceeded, and I came up with a timeline of 21 days or something without a satisfactory resolution, so that they knew when they were getting the contract that anytime I asked them to do something, the clock was running, and that somebody was going to report it besides me, so that I didn't have to just be nice and say, okay, fine, and that it would be like part of their vendor review, that it would be kept track of how long. It's just a thought, because they start squeezing you on who the noisiest customer is sometimes.
Yes, and we have moved into that mode. So if we'd have had a time frame on request,
But
that
if you
would
declare
have
it
been
up front,
late.
they get
Yeah.
more intimidated.
Right, within the RFP.
Yep,
On page 12,
yes.
Before you move on,
I'm sorry.
on 11, segregation of duties for cash receipts.
Yes.
Okay, on your response,
Uh-huh.
would it be appropriate, or would you consider inserting in there that the change that's been made is that we're using a numbered
Just
receipt
one receipt
system,
book? Yes.
and that additional receipt books are maintained by the finance staff? I think it's a
Just
process they're very familiar with the traffic citations. I'm sure are handled the same way.
Wrote that in here.
And then of course, they have to account for every receipt.
Well, what's good is traffic citations can't be paid here. That's,
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking of them. You're handed a citation book,
right.
and you have to count for,
Oh,
each officer
each
has to
ticket,
count for
right,
every
yeah,
right.
one of those citations. If he voids one, you better have all 3, 4, 5 copies to turn back in.
Right.
So it's not gonna be something real alien to their dispatcher.
Right. Okay.
Good point. bottom of page 12, management response. Once full implementation has been completed, an internal audit step will be developed. When?
That is one of our problem areas right now that we're having with the software. We have a hitch in our giddy up, and it just won't finish processing certain things. And it just so happens that business licenses is one of them in the system. And we don't know why, and they're working on fixing it. They've been given a deadline, 12/31, fix it, or we'll change. We're done.
Now, how long has this been a problem?
March?
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's been a while. So,
So you see my point about if they're not like
oh yeah,
held up front on what's an acceptable response time,
Yeah.
they just work it.
right. So now we're working towards fix it. You're about out of time. We also, though, what's good with our business licenses is that they really only go out once a year, unless there's a new business that comes into the city. So in some ways, we haven't like blown the cycle or anything, but we need to get it handled. We've also got a few ideas in the background where finance is going to have some ability to do some double checking on the backside. But we just want to get that one function either fixed or get an alternative solution so we can start implementing some of these ideas that we've got on the backside and get this fixed. So we're working on it, but one way or the other, we need to get this fixed.
Well, my concern about this too is that when we don't fix it, it just appears again and again
Yes,
and again.
yes, which
that we
is-
haven't done it.
which
Like,
is
we're
why
just
we are
being
going to
lax about it. Yeah.
Either kick someone or make change so we can get it back up and running, get it properly accounted for.
Yeah.
Page 14. This is about the RTA transit passes,
Yes,
and a tracking system is being developed.
yes.
Now, is there like a sign off on the passes that go off? In other words, I sign off that I've got passes 2001 through 2015, or is there some control behind that on?
Right, Transit's been working on different ways to do that. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of different passes, books.
Well, because we have different cities have their own passes,
Right, but we
correct?
don't sell other cities. The one we do sell RTA bus passes.
Right.
Those we have to purchase, so we have those inventoried.
Okay.
Then we have our own transit pass. So we have the monthly, and they have Route 120, and there's Route, I get them all very mixed up, but they have different books. Different books have different values, and they also, if you buy a monthly pass, they have to know which month it was for when you present the ticket to the driver. So there are colors and seals and something else. So she's trying to, they're coming up with a way to know that the cashiers at City Hall got these books, so that then when the sales are done for that month, you go in and you count how many books are left, should be able to see how many passes have been sold. So we're working with different ways of tracking all the different books, because they don't have like an inventory value. We didn't go and buy them, we rented them. So it's a little different, but we're trying to come up with ways to identify them so that we can keep those counts straight and make sure that none of the pass books are just loading into the
Well, you know your application better than I do, but in the past, when it's been that diverse, I've seen it where you literally keep a sign-out sheet for, if you're in this department and you get them, you have to sign out your books. And you don't get too many. So
No.
that you have to come back for more, and when you come back for more, everything has to have been accounted for.
Right.
And if you're in a different one, you have to sign out for your group. So you sign out by group, but you still sign out.
Right, and they do that.
Itemized number.
They
Okay.
do
And they're doing
that.
that because even the bus drivers will have a couple of ticket books on each bus that
Because
they
somebody
can.
might want to buy one when they get on, right?
Right, so they have to sign for how many are actually on bus number, blah, 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 and then they know when they come back, if they only turn one in but they left with three, we should have the sale for the other two. So it's just that there's so many different books and there's so many different places they can be sold. We got
Right.
the buses, we got the community center. They can be sold at the police department. They can be sold here. So she's just trying to find the best way to manage it. And
Do books
she's
ever
getting
get
it.
lost?
I've not asked that specifically, but my guess to that is probably.
Okay. All right.
So can we have a target date on this?
I can talk with Transit and see how their transition's going and if they've put all of they've got it all figured out how they're going to do it. And I can have their analyst actually come and present to the committee what her plan is and how she's keeping them straight, because I can't keep them straight, but she does. So I can do that.
How much money are we looking at that actually comes in from those on a monthly basis? Do you know?
It's not a tremendous amount, but it is, those past sales, the revenues generated from that go towards the fare box calculations that are
Right.
required for the transit department. So we need to make sure we capture those accurately.
Exactly.
In order for us to be eligible for funding.
Right.
We have to maintain an accurate fare box recovery.
Exactly.
Right. So, but I can do that. I will have that.
I am down to the last two, guys. Page 18. In your management response,
Okay.
any changes to status, adjustments, or documented approval, additional procedures. And my question that I wrote in the margin here are we doing a change report?
The change report.
It,
Oh, on the payroll?
yes.
Okay.
And of changes that were made, do we have a change report?
Oh, yes, I
Okay,
review that
alright.
every pay period. So
Okay.
if somebody changed their withholdings from married 5 to married 0, I have not only that change report, but I have their W-4 form, and I'm signing off on them, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I make sure that anything that changes, and I do check hourly rates, and I double check overtime to make sure nothing's been changed. So, and then we're checking it again when it comes back in now after it's been processed.
Okay, I have a question on the transit tax on 14.
Yes.
There's some reference to audit. What kind of revenue is this? Is it cost effective? Okay,
Not at
so it's
this
not
time.
something that is worth considering
No,
at
not,
this time?
not right now. The city of Beaumont has, I think, only 5 hotels.
Right.
And so the revenues aren't enough to have somebody come in from the outside and do an audit going directly to those hotel locations and doing an audit of their receipts. It just,
Yeah, I would
don't
think-
think it would be worth it.
Yeah, I would think that they'd be reporting the occupancy, and it should be a simple calculation.
And it is, and one of the things that we've thought about, it's just we're not in that time frame, is we could even just pick one of the hotels a year. All we gotta do is one to make sure
One
that
every
they.
year?
Right, to
Yeah.
make everyone aware that, okay, we're gonna start checking these things and make sure they're right. So we just aren't really there yet, but I don't think we need to pay anyone to do it either.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm done.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Nancy's done. Sharon?
Well, you know, when I was looking at this, I was thinking, okay, this is an audit for the year ending June 30th of 2016.
Exactly.
And the response, I would think, would be,
Applicable to that time frame. Yeah.
I mean, we're way
past.
far removed from that at this
Right.
point. So, so these are fairly up-to-date answers. I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
so-
I'm able to, with the management response, I'm able to respond to where are we at today kind of thing,
Okay.
where they have to report what existed during the time frame that they audited. I can say what we've done, where we're at, or what we plan still. There's a little more flexibility for the management response. So,
Yeah, I thought they were pretty good overall. So even though, and I knew some of them were up to date. So
Yeah.
that was what I was curious about. But
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else have comments, questions? We're good?
We're good.
So with some of the discussion that we've the discussion that we've had with this, if the auditors were to bring this to council as well next week, would the committee be all right with council accepting the internal control report? We've talked about some things. I don't know how much they would change the management responses, but we can always continue to follow up on these as a group as well.
I'm good with it.
All right.
Do we need a motion for a formal acceptance to present? Okay. So can I get a motion for approving this to go to council with
With
our
any-
blessings?
Right, with any non-substantive changes. So if we tweak a word or something, I'm okay.
and it will be a draft. That still be a draft. or
No, not
will
if
be
it
a
goes to
final?
council. If it goes to council, it's gonna be the one.
Received as a final. Okay.
So can I get a motion? You want to go?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that this draft be forwarded on to city council with those changes noted as a final report.
Okay. And a second?
I'll-
Okay. I missed it. I'm sorry.
Who seconded it?
Who did it? There we go. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to number 5, our Wilmington Trust update. How are we doing with them?
We are doing great.
Yay.
We are making progress. We actually, today I was handed the journal entries for the November activity to get it all in. I know. So
Yay.
can't just review it yet, but I'll review it so that we can get that posted and we're able to get it going as we go. We have had a few prepayments from CFDs from residents, and being able to transfer those funds directly over to Wilmington has been smooth, very
That's
smooth.
wonderful.
So it has been really, really easy to work with them.
Right.
We probably, at some point, will have to start working with them to get some of the funds released based on some of the development agreements that we've had settlement agreements on. And I've already been talking to them, and it sounds like it's going to be a nice, mellow process. There's not going to be something horrible. Everything still has to be documented, dot the i's, cross the t's.
Right, as long as we give them everything that they're wanting, then we're looking at a smooth.
Right, and like I said, really the difficult part we had is when we did all those refunding.
Right.
That was just
Refinancing.
so many of them at once that
Right.
we just got a little overwhelmed in the number of transactions. But we've gotten that, just the regular monthly activity, we've got it down now, so we're doing really great.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Are you getting the reports that you find sufficient? Because they were ready and willing to adapt any type of reporting that you needed. So have you found them easy to
have.
work with without?
Their website is a little bit, it's taken me a little while to get used to it, but I can get transactional reports. I can do some accounts, all the accounts, only these accounts, do that. I can do this month,
Timeframes.
these months, I can do summarized, so I'm getting better at it. I think a lot of with everything, you just have to practice at it, but it's getting better and we're able to stay up to date on it now. So it's been great.
Good.
Yeah,
We good?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other questions on the Wilmington Trust, we'll move on to number 6, which is status of request for proposal audit services for fiscal year 16-17.
Yes, we have gotten the proposals. They are being reviewed and scored, and going through that process, we'll be able to do the final assessment and we're going to try and get a recommendation to city council to select the firm this month. So that is our plan.
Our
So
next
that-
meeting.
So I'm hoping that we can get that, timing being what it is, that we can get that done so we can get the new firm rolling on getting like the preliminary documents that they need to get in place and meet with our existing auditors while what they've been working on is still fresh and do all the things that they need to do, maybe get the audit started January. That's my hope.
That'd be
How many
great.
proposals did you get back?
3. We have 3.
Well, that'll be great too, because part of our problem with perception is the gap is so long
Right.
between the time period that's covered in the examination of the audit and the response. So it looks like
We're catching
we're
up.
not doing anything
Right.
about this or anything about
Right.
that because the time period is back. So as soon as we can, everything will become more realistic to the community too, because it'll be talking about more current.
Right, I mean, the audit's always gonna be after the fact, there's no way for it to not be after the fact, but ideally, I would love to have the audit fieldwork done, completed by the end of November and issued before the end of December. That, I mean, that would be great timing, then we have time to do all the state filings, everything matches, and there's nothing left out, nothing that doesn't make sense. So that is the goal, to at some point, to get to where that smoothly transitions. The year end gets closed, all the entries are in, the auditors come in, they do their work, they issue the report, we file with the state, and we're already starting to look at the next year. So that is, for me, that's the goal.
That's good. And hopefully by, 17, 18 fiscal year, hopefully we will have the prelim statement by September, October. If you're looking on November, right?
Right,
So we could discuss it and see it.
see the preliminary year end, we can talk about accruals or anything that
That's
I'm
correct.
missing still, or, where we stand before the auditors even come in to do the audit. Yep.
And then you'll be done now with your journal entries and all those stuff on those, on that year, on that month?
Right, I'm
You
hoping
think?
to have year-end entries in, if we can push and get ourselves on track, that we have
Yeah.
all of our entries in by the end of September. And we still may not have like the horrible actuarial GASB adjustments,
Yeah.
but if we have everything else, and that's just the only thing left pending, that it still gives us something really good to look at. So that's that's my goal.
Thank you.
You good? Everybody good? Okay, if there's no other questions on our audit services, we'll move to number 7, which is organizational committee changes. As everybody knows, this is my last meeting. I know. I just need a break. I've got so many projects going on right now. I just need a break for a while. I'll be back. I will be back. So, I'm not going to be in this process. Do you want to carry this for the organizational changes?
We have already agreed that Steve is going to take over. So,
As chair,
yes,
and then
so
you'll need to do a,
why don't we have Steve take over this discussion?
that would be
Is
great.
that too short a notice throwing it your way? So to
No,
speak?
we can.
We'll all pitch in.
No,
It's just-
yeah, no, I think it's kind of how we function a little bit. So with that, moving on, now I understand we have 2 other members whose terms are ending as well. Is that correct?
Yes, there is
Right.
John and Steve. Their terms end on January 1 also. So I had sent them an email after last meeting, because I forgot to bring it up during the meeting, to have your applications.
So now, do I just resubmit the same application
You-
with the same qualification process, or?
I would look online and see if the application is changed, but it is online. You can print it out and, complete it. And then it's
Well, let
due
me
when?
ask you this. They're appointed by council. So couldn't council just reappoint them if they're willing to serve again? Do we have to actually have them go through an application process again?
Well-
I mean, council reappoints people all the time.
Maybe, see, in my mind, that was the instructions from Nicole. In my mind, I felt just doing a letter to council stating that you'd like to continue your service would be sufficient. I think that would, for me, that would be fine. Nicole was just the one that said that they needed to do an application. So,
Okay. Could you, Milana, could you check with Nicole,
We can send a notification out.
document-wise, whether it's a requirement? And then just communicate to
Steve and John.
Steve and John and let them know. And then we'll put it on the agenda for the next council meeting. We'll know more by then. We can put it, sound okay to you, Ray? We can put it on the agenda for the next council meeting to review their appointment, and then we could potentially reappoint them, if that's okay with the
Which would be
process.
great.
What do you think?
So do you want
Am I
me
getting
to?
ahead of myself?
Heavens no. I can ask Nicole about it, send emails to you
Right.
both, and then do you think it's to put it on the 19th for
Well,
next
the app-
week?
The applications for new people coming in, she gave me,
Do we have some
Do
response?
you have any applications?
okay, let's see. Let me see what Nicole gave me
Why
here.
don't we put it at the beginning of January?
January 2nd meeting, okay,
Yeah, 'cause
so,
that's the following city council meeting is January 2nd, which is before the very first finance meeting in January.
So
Right.
why don't we put it then?
Okay, I can do that.
Is that all right?
Yeah, she said
And
all
then
app-
everything will be cleared up, I think?
yeah, she said all applications will be taken to council January 2nd for consideration
Oh,
of
okay.
reappointment. Anyone that does not reapply cannot be reconsidered.
That's fine.
Okay, so I don't know
Okay.
if there's a specific reason for the reapplication. My mind, a letter would, like I said, a letter would be
Yeah,
sufficient.
does that qualify as an application? It
She's being more.
seems like
I
it
mean,
should,
all the
unless there's
information's already on file.
some code that's requiring something different. And so we're looking at John Chamberlain and Stephen Martino, correct?
I'll check with Nicole in the morning and we'll make sure we get something sent out.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then if we do have alternates, we have applications for alternates? Has anybody applied?
Nicole has not given me an update on
Okay.
that lately.
All right,
I'll find out.
So maybe we can,
I think that's what she's hoping for, to
Yeah.
bring to January
and
2's
then we
meeting.
could add the alternates at the same time
Correct.
if it was ready.
Correct.
Sound good?
Okay, seems to work. And I think it might be appropriate to wait till then to see about a
Your vice chair and-
Okay.
Okay, so at this point in time, knowing that, I think we all give a thank you to Elaine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
A big thank you.
I've enjoyed every minute of my time here, so I will be back.
Okay,
And I hope it's.
and John, we'll wait and see what happens. We don't want
Are
to thank you
kidding?
for
We
leaving
worked
and have you
too
hurry up and get
hard
out of
for
here.
too long to get to this point. Now that all the reports are coming in and the audits are in and everything else is starting to go smoothly, I'm like, gosh, now the easy stuff's coming, right?
Now we're just gonna say
Now you
Steve
can
did
leave.
it all.
There you go.
That's right, man.
Where are you?
Ah,
Exactly.
All the hard work.
Yeah. Okay. All right, everyone. So, John, I know that I still owe you an email. We talked
Yeah.
about that the last time, so, yeah.
And I just want to say you all have been a really great team to work at and with, and I just hope we don't lose any of you. Hint,
That's right.
hint. So, You've all been
I'll be
great.
back.
It's such an important job for the city, and you are just all so appreciated for the time you put in.
Yeah, everybody recognizes that this is all donation of time, and it takes a lot of time to do this. There's a lot of reports to go through, and, especially starting with the new reports that we're going to start getting on a monthly basis, you know, there's a lot of going back to the previous month and checking and auditing, so it does. It takes a lot of time and energy.
Okay, about 8 yet?
Okay, let's move on to future agenda items. So January, just to let me be, January, we get our first set of financial reports, right? The ones, okay, so that definitely will be on there, okay. And you got good stuff, Nancy?
I have the State Controller's Office report. This is like some of the other things. At some point, I want to absolutely tie this with a ribbon and be done with it, so that we know that we were not required to go through the volume of response that we have done. However, we are required by our commitment to the community. And I just really want to see that one finished up.
Right. I believe we still have 2 open items. One is the policies and procedures, which we will also have in January. And the other is the final GASB 34 valuation and getting that on the books. So we're getting there on that one. It's amazing how much the city owns. There's a lot of things that you don't think you need to value, but we have to take it all into consideration, and it's tedious, but.
Well,
So do you think we need to do an update then on that, at that?
I want to get to some point where we have a final, where everything has been done. And one of the things that worries me about the vendors, when they don't get their part of the bargain done, is they screw us up on this SEO checklist.
Right.
Because there's something that's in their ballpark that we're still waiting for them to find the time to make sure that we're not walking something across the floor.
Right.
And that makes me angry, because we've all spent so much time, and the public expects us to be done with this.
Right.
They're holding us, not the vendor, responsible.
Right, right, and
Yeah.
that's why we've now put our foot down on
Well,
that.
us in
And
terms of the city.
Yeah, the
There's a
city.
responsibility in the public's mind for the city to fix what was brought up in that state controller's report.
Right.
And we are committed to doing it. And when the vendor gets in the way, it's just
Right.
unconscionable.
Right. We're really close, so absolutely we'll do the update. We can do that in January as well, and we see exactly what's left, and then we'll just chip away at it until it is all settled.
So is it sufficient to do update SEO checklist update?
Yes?
Okay.
Or should we define that a little further?
I mean, we've done updates about 4 times.
But it can't be completed until, for sure, I got my GASB 34 all set. Because that is the last piece, and it's just
So that will be after the next audit, you believe?
it has to be before the next audit, because
Okay.
I need to record it at June 30, 2017.
Okay, all right.
We're working on, believe it or not, we have to know how many streetlights there are.
Yeah,
We have to
yeah,
know how many
you're right.
traffic
There
signals
are.
there are, and how old they are, and,
Well, and then we got land and buildings.
right, so
Yeah,
that's
all
what
right.
we're
No, you're
working
right.
on, and
Right.
So-
that's on us, that's not on a vendor, so that's the hard part.
Okay, so do we have any idea? I know that when I participated in the last one, it was overwhelming when we started looking at historical buildings, when we started looking at monuments and trying to determine a value of that. It's not like there's a Kelly Blue Book or anything. It was,
Right?
yeah, it was amazingly difficult.
Yeah, so
So-
we're looking at, right now, we're still trying to figure out how's the best way to tackle these things, like number of streetlights. So if we say we come up, we say, okay, there's 512 streetlights. Well, which ones are the old ones? Which ones are the new ones? Which ones have the LED with the battery, and which ones don't? And then we're just gonna, at some point, we're just gonna have to, that's what it has to be. And so, yeah, we're trying to figure out how to tackle those pieces right now. And
Okay, so if you lift out what is still remaining to keep us from finishing, and then you put a projected date, and you put that in writing, and you put that in summary, And then we still take the whole rest of the SCO and we update that generally, but we have lifted out a matrix of hot items that absolutely need to be finished before we can wrap this up, and then an anticipated date, then that will be a solid enough update for me.
Okay. And then we
that
don't have to revisit all the ones we can say with certainty are done. Yes.
Because that would be great, to
I
just say,
want it-
these are finished, we're done. Right.
Okay.
So you can even have a supplemented piece of paper where you just have like an appendix where you say done, 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 and then a forward piece that says, you know, critical to be done, here's the date, whatever. So that we have a clear summary and in anticipation of when it will be wrapped up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Does that include the things that the vendor is still working on? Because I heard so much, during the meeting of, the vendors
Oh, the
working on it, where they
updates.
promised it. Sounds like we need something also of a list of what
Right.
the vendor.
Some of those
Has to
little
finish.
bitty, there's some sign-offs and integration issues, absolutely.
Because
Like I said,
I agree with her. If you let vendors continue, we'll be sitting here 2 years from now
Right.
with some of that stuff
Right.
still, the vendors not finished.
right, and that's why we have told them, this is it, solve or you're out, so.
I would really like to see a list of the things that the vendor still has to do.
Okay. You got it.
Well, in the version of the state controller's checklist that we were tracking, Joanne, we actually had, like, what the item was, what were the gating issues or resources to that item, and then where we anticipated it to be done. So in that framework, we could say what the issue is, what the gating issue is, and we could say vendors, where the vendor is the gate.
Okay.
And then that would give us a little more intelligence on the matrix.
Okay.
Would that work for you? Mm-hmm. Okay, because I agree with you. And put the vendor's name next to it.
Exactly.
Accountability.
Accountability.
And release it to the press enterprise.
Don't let them off. It's going to be public. We're recording this. Oh, gosh.
Okay.
You can just tell the vendor that we were getting really mad and rowdy.
We're doing our Yelp review.
They need to watch the replay of this meeting.
That's right.
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 Yeah, say that we were saying, why aren't they here?
There you go.
All right.
I think we also need to put back on the list the organizational committee changes.
Right,
Okay.
Because the meeting's on the
Right.
11th, or the 8th, I think
The 8th.
it was, right?
correct.
So we'll put that back on there.
And would it be too early to get a staff report on how you're going to leap forward into fraud? Not
Probably.
by us, but in terms of by tying this down? Is that too early?
Probably.
Okay,
Only because of the holidays and I'm still
I
trying to
just
get the
want
audit
it to
done and
be-
the new auditor started and,
okay.
yeah.
Okay,
But I'll
I
make
just
that
want it to be
a
an action
February item.
at some point here, where we start to get it visible, so we don't see it on an audit report again.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Steve, typically what I do is I put a little sheet that I have where I've got a running list of stuff that comes up. It may not be going on this next agenda, but it's something that,
I got it.
perfect, okay. Okay, anything else that we want to put on future agenda? I think January is going to be pretty good, because that's going to be your first month that you're going to have the monthly reports. So I think you're going to have a little more time to go through, and let Milana, explain what all the reports are and the line items, and you'll be
Right.
able to question everything, so that the next month and the next month, everything
And
will
they'll
be
start falling in
Right.
place.
It'll
a
start
flow
being
and
normal.
an audit of the previous.
Okay.
So
We can do that.
I think that'll take quite a bit of time, actually. Okay, anything else? We good? We good? Okay. All right, we'll move on to number 9, which is our meeting review for the Treasurer's Monthly Finance and Audit Committee Report to Council.
Okay, well, we covered a lot tonight, didn't we? Item number 1, we adopted the minutes. I don't know if that even needs to be put on there, but the second item was the going over the draft 2015-16 audit report. We had a few questions, but, and discussed the audit, but we ultimately recommended that the council approve the draft audit with changes. Do you think there needs to be more? I mean, we really didn't go into a lot of
No,
detail.
I think we're good.
I would just say that there were non-substantial suggestions that were made and that they're going to be put into the final version that's going to go before council, and that everybody agreed to that.
Okay. Number 3, Finance Department policies, cash management and cash receipts. The only thing I wrote down was that the bank reconciliation copy will be given to the treasurer, and that the director of administration will check the original bank statement against the bank reconciliation.
Now, that was a change in the policies, correct? Change in the policy and procedure.
That will change will be made, yeah. This is just my own notes here. Number 4 is the draft internal controls report for 15-16. The first thing I have is that the policies and procedures will be reviewed at least annually. That we discussed that and asked for a few changes to the report. We also discussed that about training and seminars for the accounting staff for guidelines. These are just my notes, but I don't know if
I
if you
think
want
just giving a brief synopsis of the items that we were
I mean,
asked
do we
for.
need to go into all this detail, do you
No.
think?
No,
Okay.
I don't think
I
so,
don't know.
Sharon.
I don't think you do.
Okay, I made notes of
Yeah,
all that,
that's
so
okay.
we don't need
It's good
that.
for you to understand it, but feel free to summarize it.
That we
for
just
me.
discussed
Yeah.
it and made a few changes.
Yes, that'd be perfect.
Okay.
Because Milana's going to want to talk to the city manager about that aspect too,
Okay. Number 5 is the update on Wilmington Trust. Milana said they're making progress and pretty much up to date. That they've accepted prepayments from residents and the process went smoothly with Wilmington Trust. They've worked through the refinance CFDs and that's going pretty smoothly. Number 6, status of request for proposal for audit services. They've gotten responses and they're being reviewed and scored. The recommendation will be made at the next council meeting. And then they want to get this done so the transition with the existing auditor goes smoothly. Number 7, organizational committee changes. This is Elaine's last meeting today, is that correct?
Yeah.
Steve will be the chair. John and Steve, these are just notes, and they need to do an application to reapply, and there was discussion on that. Milana will check with Nicole to see if a letter is acceptable or sufficient. The council could then review and appoint John and Steve. Also, Milana was going to find out if there's applications for alternate. This may be too much detail, if you guys
You
think.
know, I was just thinking that by the time you give your treasurer's report, that's already going to have been in front of
I know,
council.
this happens.
And so is
A
number
lot of
6,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I
Right.
think it's just that, I would just say that we had a discussion on the item, and I would just leave
Okay.
it at that.
Okay,
Because it's already going to be presented by the time.
Yeah.
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 It'll be
That
resolved
happens.
before then.
Happens a lot.
Right.
Yeah. And then, future agenda is the financial reports, for our first monthly financial reports, an SCO update, list of vendor, updates that still need to be done, and organizational changes into the committee.
That sounds good to me. If we got everything. Anything else that we think it's important that goes to, in her report for council? Okay,
That was good, too.
thanks, Sharon.
Yeah, I try not to do too much detail. That's,
Yeah,
I tend to get bogged down with the
Well,
detail.
you have to write it down so that you remember what's in
Yeah.
each one of those
Yeah.
components. And then you have to summarize it after
Yeah.
that, so, yep.
So,
okay, if there's not any other comments or needs or a future agenda item, I'm going to call adjournment of the meeting at 7:55. Our next meeting is January 8th.